Good morning, church. It seems to me that every major event in the course of human history was due to a choice. Human life itself came to be because of a choice. It was no accident or coincidence. It was God who chose to make man in his own image. And soon thereafter, man made a choice. It wasn't simply that they were deceived or tricked. It wasn't a lack of comprehension of what death really was. It wasn't just this big misunderstanding. It was a choice. Eve and Adam both chose to disobey. As we continue down the timeline of biblical events, we can quickly notice the effects of choices. Cain chooses to kill Abel, the first human murder. Noah chooses to build an ark. A family of 8 are delivered from the flood. Abraham chooses to attempt to have a child with Hagar. A son is born, Ishmael. Abraham chooses to sacrifice his son Isaac. His son is spared, and his faith is made strong. Jacob's sons choose to get rid of their brother. And Joseph becomes an instrument of God and his people in Egypt. Moses chooses to take God's message to Pharaoh, and the Israelites are let go. Rahab chooses to hide Israelite spies, and her family is spared from the destruction of Jericho. Samson chooses to give God's secret to his wife, and his own destruction is imminent. David's choice to fight Goliath. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's choice to defy their king. Daniel's choice to pray even against the king's decree. And of course, Jonah's choice to run from God. We could add to this list, or continue on throughout secular history, or even go back through the same list and analyze and pontificate on the effects of each of these choices, their short-term effects and long-term effects in the grand scheme of things. But I'm eager to get to the choice above all choices, the choice to redeem man. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Or better yet, for God so loved the world that he chose to give his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. With this, we can skip ahead to the here and now. We can get a little bit personal because you see, because of God's choice, because of God's method of redemption, our salvation is now dependent upon our choice. Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish. Your destiny is up to you. Your destiny is in your hands. Your destiny is your choice. So we must begin to ask ourselves, do I choose to believe? Who do I choose to follow? And in this great controversy, what side will I be on? I am a teacher, and I teach biology. And whether I was teaching 7th graders or high school students, there would always come a time in the year where I would be presenting a topic which called for me to identify us, humans, as animals. And without fail, in every class, there would be those who would rise up in protest. I'm not an animal. You calling us animals? Oh, that's not right. I ain't no animal. I then would have to go into my little spiel about how, based on scientific classification, our physical characteristics of being multicellular and heterotrophic simply place us in the kingdom Animalia, which makes us animals. Though this appeased some, others still refuse to accept this truth. More than that, they remain offended and disgusted by even a mere implication that they were animals. Sometimes I proceeded to give them choices. Well, what would you rather be? A plant? A bacteria? Or maybe you'd prefer being considered a fungus? Because those are your only other choices. Of course, my choices only fueled their resistance to any classification, and usually they come to a mature conclusion with a scientifically profound statement such as, I'm none of those things. I'm human. It's interesting to me that a person would be so offended to be called an animal, especially when I consider that God did just that. He called us animals. Actually, he even identified the specific animal to which he was referring. He called us sheep. At first thought, that doesn't offend me. Actually, before I found out anything about sheep, I thought it was kind of nice. Arguably, sheep can be kind of cute, all cuddly and soft. And they're useful. Tons of things can be made from just their wool. How nice. God thinks I'm useful and cute. But then I read about sheep. I found out sheep, they aren't so smart. And that's putting it nicely. Everything I've recently read points to sheep as being brainless and inept, moronic, dense, and intellectually vacant, and simply the dumbest animals on the face of the earth. And God calls us sheep. Don't bother being offended yet. If that's not bad enough, evidently sheep are dirty. Sheep will not and cannot clean themselves. I guess they're just too dumb. So they're dumb, they're dirty, and they're defenseless. They've got no claws or fangs. They can't run or roar. And even though they're always dirty, they can't even stink bad enough to scare away a predator. All they can do is bad, bad. And God calls me a sheep. He calls us all sheep. And a moment before I become offended, I consider humanity dumb, dirty, defenseless. For all intents and purposes, I must admit, we're sheep. And if we are sheep, we're going to need a shepherd. The question is, who will be your shepherd? Of course, we have the choice. We can choose our shepherd. So let's consider shepherds for a moment. The burden of taking care of such dumb, dirty, and defenseless creatures must be a difficult one, and at times, I imagine, quite unpleasant. Shepherds are often secluded from society, living and sleeping with their flock, getting by on just the bare essentials. They are also vulnerable to attack from predators or just evil men looking to beat and rob them. David was a shepherd. He understood the difficulties of his profession. He felt the seclusion and unpleasantness of his job. He faced the dangers and harsh realities that shepherding brought. And with this knowledge, with his understanding of sheep and shepherding, he too, knowing that he himself was in God's eyes a sheep, he chose a shepherd. And we can see his choice in the well-known 23rd Psalm. Many people are fond of this particular psalm. For some, it's their all-time favorite verse. I had never thought too much about the verse myself. It was just one of those common verses that you learn. But that was before I found out about sheep. That was before I understood what it meant to be a shepherd. I don't know how many here already know what I've recently learned, but if what I present is new to you, then maybe, like me, you will fall in love with this psalm for the first time, or all over again. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. This was David's choice. To be his shepherd, David chose the Lord. And if I am to choose a shepherd, I'm not going to ignore David's decision. I'm going to catch on to his coattail and quickly get on his bandwagon because remember, David knew sheep. And David knew what it meant to be a shepherd. So for starters, on that basis alone, I'm going to say it with him. The Lord is my shepherd too. You see, if you're going to choose a shepherd, you better choose a good one. If as a sheep, you're going to put your life, your future, and your destiny into the hands of a shepherd, you better choose a great one. And since I have a choice, I'm going to choose the best shepherd there is. The Lord is my shepherd. Amen. I shall not want, or better yet, I shall not lack. Though I am dumb, dirty, and defenseless, I shall be in need of nothing. Because you see, the Lord is my shepherd. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. It's not he allows me to, or he lets me. It's he makes me. Apparently, sheep are so dumb, they don't even know when they are tired. It is not uncommon for a shepherd to literally make his sheep lie down, force them to the ground. Actually, there's even a method of inflicting momentary paralysis that a shepherd can perform on his sheep in order to force them to rest. Has God ever forced you to rest? Have you ever been given an experience, possibly an unfortunate and painful one, that caused you to just slow down? Has God ever knocked you from your pedestal, landing you on your knees just so you could hear him? Has he ever laid you flat on your back so that the only way you can look is up, just so that you can finally pause a moment in your busy schedule of life and see him? The Lord is my shepherd. But even if a sheep has a moment of brilliance and is aware that they are tired and attempts to rest, there are things in a sheep's everyday life that can make this difficult. First of all, they are naturally nervous and fearful. Almost anything can agitate them out of a moment's rest. It is up to the shepherd to calm and comfort them so they will not fear. The Lord is my shepherd. Sheep also have competition within the flock, a pecking order sort of thing that causes certain sheep to always be unable to rest because they're always defending their territory and defending themselves, or being bossed around by other sheep, or being bossed themselves. It's just a big mess of stressful irritation causing them unrest. Strangely, though, when the shepherd is near, there is a change of behavior. They seem to forget their foolish rivalries, and the fighting is stopped. In the presence of the shepherd, bitterness, envy, jealousy, which rob us of rest, can turn into affection and brotherly love. The Lord is my shepherd. Another hindrance to the rest of sheep are those pesky gnats and flies, which force them up on their feet, stamping their legs and shaking their heads in a feeble attempt to rid themselves of these pests, which are a severe frustration and distraction, making them unable to rest. So a shepherd, a good shepherd, will apply various types of insect repellents in order to remove these frustrations from their lives. I sometimes have nagging thoughts and frustrations myself, but that's okay. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He leadeth me beside still waters. Did you know that sheep literally cannot drink from fast-flowing waters? The obvious reason being they are very likely to fall in, and their wool will soak and fill with water, making them way too heavy to get out on their own. And remember, they're dumb, so they might not even try. A shepherd would definitely have to go in and get them. Also, the shape of their mouth is just not conducive to drinking from fast-flowing waters. So even though a sheep would gladly go run down to try and drink from an inappropriate water source, be it fast-flowing or polluted, it is the shepherd who must lead them to what is best for them. Sometimes it is necessary for a shepherd to create still waters within a fast-flowing stream by forming a dam with wood and rocks or whatever is available so the sheep can quench their thirst. It is my shepherd who must warn me from approaching the fast-flowing waters. It is my shepherd who must dive in and save me when I refuse to listen. It is my shepherd who creates still waters within the rushing waves of life. And even when I don't understand, when flowing waters look just like or better than still waters, it is my shepherd who must lead me to the things I need as opposed to the things I want and desire. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He restoreth my soul. There are three types of sheep. The first are the ones that are always with the shepherd. They are trying to be near him, and they want to be touched. And if for a moment they are separated, they listen for his voice calling them by name, and they answer joyfully. These are the happy sheep, because they aren't in danger of getting lost or eaten. They're content. But then there's the other type. The type of sheep always wandering about, sniffing bushes, checking out what's just beyond the bend, but still keeping an eye out for the shepherd or the flock. After all, they don't want to get completely lost. They'll play along the edge a bit, but they resist falling over. The third type of sheep is completely restless, always running off, falling in holes, breaking their bones, and ultimately getting lost. It is a sheep like this that forces a shepherd to go looking for his lost sheep. A great shepherd might have to restore that sheep's soul. Without getting angry and upset, he simply goes out in search of his lost sheep. Sometimes a sheep goes missing because they have literally fallen and can't get up. This may be because they're in a hole or simply because they've grown too fat. A fat sheep or a sheep with too much wool can sit down, roll over, and simply be unable to rise. The sheep must be sheared. Its wool must be removed, or it must be placed on a strict diet. Both unpleasant experiences for the sheep, yet necessary for their safety and survival. All we, like sheep, have gone astray. We are in need of constant restoration. And this restoration can be given to us daily, if not continuously, through forgiveness, by which our old self is sheared away and we are made new, or rather restored to a state of righteousness by our shepherd. And yes, the Lord is my shepherd. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. How does a shepherd lead? A good shepherd leads his flock by example. A shepherd always walks ahead of his sheep, especially in new terrain. My shepherd has given me an example. I must simply look ahead and follow. A great shepherd leads his flock with his voice. Although sheep are dumb, they have proven capable of learning one thing, and that's their shepherd's voice. Even when several flocks of sheep are intermingled, a shepherd can call for his sheep, and only they will come. A sheep learns this voice because a good shepherd is always speaking to his sheep. This familiarity with voice develops a trust between sheep and shepherd. As a sheep, I must listen to my shepherd's voice. I must learn it and know it so when he calls, I can answer. The Lord is my shepherd. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Even if you choose the Lord as your shepherd, life will not always be still waters and green pastures. There are valleys, and there are shadows, and there is death. But I will fear no evil, because my shepherd tells me, I will never leave you nor forsake you. A good shepherd never leaves his flock. And if we're choosing the Lord as our shepherd, we've got a great shepherd. And we can walk firmly and fearlessly with assurance that everything's going to be all right. Because that valley may be sickness, or it may be death. That valley may be bankruptcy and breakups or betrayal, but no worries, because I'm not staying in the valley. I'm not hanging out for a while in the shadows. I'm walking through. After all, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I always thought that the rod was just another name for staff. But actually, they are two totally different things. The staff is, of course, what we commonly see in pictures, a long stick with a curved end. A shepherd uses his staff for many purposes. One is to number his sheep. Every morning and evening, as the sheep go in and out from their pasture, the shepherd places his staff over the sheep and counts them as they go under. Of course, a good shepherd knows the exact number of sheep in his flock, no matter how large or small it is. Better yet, a great shepherd knows each sheep by name, and he will know if but one sheep is missing. The staff is also used to recover sheep. Weak sheep are helped across small streams and kept from getting stuck in the mud. And a shepherd can lower his staff into a pit and raise a fallen sheep from his demise. The staff is also used to physically comfort sheep. Many sheep actually like to be touched by the shepherd. And since the shepherd's hands can only reach so far, he will often use his staff to reach out and touch them, thereby letting the sheep know he's right there with them. And as a shepherd leads, the staff is often a visible reference point that can be seen in the distance, indicating to the sheep that they're still following their shepherd. And if it becomes foggy or dark, so much so that the staff can no longer be seen, a good shepherd will lightly tap his staff on the rocks as they travel. So although he cannot be seen, his location is expressed, and the sheep can follow. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. A rod is a weapon. It's a short stick with jagged rocks deeply embedded into it, its obvious purpose being for the protection of his sheep. A shepherd had to be an excellent marksman, often throwing his rod and slaying a predator who would seek to devour his sheep. Not only was a rod used for protection, but it was also used for correction. To discipline a sheep, a shepherd may whack his sheep on their heels or on their back, bringing them back in line with his commands. And sometimes, when a sheep is so wayward, so disobedient, so unwilling to follow the flock and his shepherd, it sometimes becomes necessary for a shepherd to do a seemingly cruel thing. The shepherd, using his rod, will break a leg of the sheep, making it unable to walk, unable to run off on its own. Instead, the shepherd must now carry the sheep everywhere it needs to go. When it is hungry, the shepherd carries it and places food before it. When it is thirsty, the shepherd carries it and places it before still waters. It is constantly in the arms of the shepherd. The sheep must learn to rely solely on his shepherd for shelter, safety, and sustenance. But soon, of course, the sheep can walk, but not good enough to be self-reliant. You will see him turn to the shepherd at every bump, hole, and hurdle, and the shepherd will carry him over. This once wayward sheep becomes so accustomed to relying on his shepherd for everything that even when he is fully healed, there is nowhere else he'd rather be than right beside his shepherd. For some of us, our only hope is to be broken in order to finally place all of our trust in him. Well, I can ask my shepherd to break me if I ever need it, and I know he'll do so. Even when I turn away, when I don't answer his voice, and I end up falling in a hole, his rod and his staff, they comfort me. When I need it, his staff reaches down and rescues me. When I need it, his staff reaches out and consoles me. And when I need it, his staff taps those rocks and he guides me. And when I need it, his rod is thrown and he protects me. And when I need it, his rod strikes and he chastens me. The Lord is my shepherd. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. In the heat of the day, the shepherd will lead his flock to higher ground. The higher you go, the cooler it is. So a shepherd can choose a table, which is actually a plateau, to prepare for his sheep for further grazing. To prepare a table means that the shepherd goes ahead of the sheep and removes such things as poisonous plants that could prove lethal to an unknowing sheep. The shepherd will also jam pebbles and rocks into snake holes to prevent snakes from leaping out and injuring his flock. Now, the sheep could be led to higher ground in the presence of their enemies, such as poisonous plants and snakes. But these enemies were now of no threat. They were made to be incapable of causing any damage to his flock. My shepherd prepared a table for me. He too went ahead. He too climbed a hill. And on that hill, a hill called Calvary, my enemy was defeated. His threat removed. I can sit in his presence and have no fear. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Thou anointest my head with oil. As we said earlier, gnats and flies can be a great pest to a sheep. Even more than that, they can be lethal. If not cared for correctly, a fly can enter the nose or land on the eyes of a sheep and lay their eggs. Their growing eggs can prove fatal to a sheep. Therefore, it is necessary every morning before a sheep is led to pasture for his head to be anointed with oil, thus protecting them from the possible infections and death caused by random pests. And every evening as the sheep return to their sheepfold, a good shepherd uses his rod, that same weapon of protection and correction, and he carefully works his way through the wool, looking for cuts, scratches, and abrasions that without treatment would also prove hazardous to the health of his sheep. And if an injury is found, he carefully pours oil over the injury as a source of comfort and healing. Some of us here today have scars and injuries, pains and hurtings that no one ever sees. They are covered, hidden under the wool of our facades, our smiling faces, our witty remarks. That's what shows on the outside to the rest of the sheep. But when you choose the Lord as your shepherd, he is unwilling to let you get by with just covering up your heartache. He peels away barriers and breaks down walls to get inside your heart and heal you from the inside out by anointing you with his oil. The Lord is my shepherd. My cup runneth over. Shepherds usually carry cups or small buckets to hold cool water in order to refresh their sheep. In the heat of the sun, a sheep can get rather tired and weary. A good shepherd notices, and he'll fill his bucket with water and place it before the sheep, not to drink, but to plunge their faces into the cool, refreshing liquid. Of course, this would cause the water to overflow over the sides of the bucket and splash to the ground. At the sound of this splashing, other sheep, also tired and weary, would hastily come to the shepherd and wait their turn in line for their moment of refreshing. So too should it be with my relationship with my shepherd. Yes, I may get tired and weary, but I know that he is there to refresh me, to spiritually revive me so that I can overflow with life. And from my overflow, others are touched and brought to him for their own spiritual revival. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. If the Lord is my shepherd, and shepherds commonly have sheepdogs, the names of God's sheepdogs must be goodness and mercy. Notice it's not goodness or mercy. It's goodness and mercy. It would not be enough to simply have God's goodness. Yes, his provisions for our every need is wonderful. But it wouldn't be enough unless we had his mercy to provide forgiveness of our sins. So before us is our shepherd, and following close behind are his goodness and mercy. And thus I am enveloped within a sphere of satisfaction, restoration, guidance, protection, comfort, and revitalization for all the days of my life. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. After all, wasn't that the whole point? Remember, David knew sheep. David understood what it meant to be a shepherd, to be a great shepherd. And it is with that knowledge that he wrote this song. It isn't just fancy poetry. It is a declaration of his choice, with each line indicating and detailing why he so boldly says, "The Lord is my shepherd." And now, with my new understanding of sheep and what it means to be a shepherd, I totally agree with him. I am dumb, too ignorant to know what is best for me. I am dirty. I am such a sinner that all the righteousness I can muster is nothing but filthy rags. I am defenseless. Alone I cannot wage war with the devil. I need a shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. My shepherd says to me, "Believeth in me and you will have everlasting life." My shepherd says to me, "Choose me and you will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." At this very moment, I could present to you a choice. I could say we're about to play a game. It will be side A versus side B. And it is completely your choice which side you will be on. But you must decide quickly. Some of you would choose easily. Some of you would struggle with your choice. Some would look around for what other people are choosing. And some wouldn't choose at all. But that's not it. I have a bit of information to add, something that may make your decision a lot easier. At the end of the game, no matter what the score, no matter how well you feel you played, no matter what, Side B will be declared the winner. Has the choice been made easy for you? It would for me. Or are you saying to yourself, that's not fair. What about the people who chose side A? Well, they knew the rules. They knew who the winner was going to be. They made a choice. They chose to lose. Me, I would have chosen to win. In fact, I do choose to win. Before us all is that same choice, but only it's not a game. It's life. It's not side A versus side B. It's good versus evil. It's truth versus lies. It's God versus Satan. It's the great controversy, and we've all been given the same information. God wins. No matter the score, no matter how well I think I did, no matter what, God wins. So if I fail to choose God, if I fail to choose the Lord as my shepherd, or if I simply fail to choose, I'm going to end up on the wrong side. But no, I don't want to lose. I don't want to end up swept away by rushing waters. I don't want to be stricken with fear within the valley of the shadow of death. I don't want to be vulnerable to my enemies. I don't want to be without his goodness and mercy. And I definitely don't want to miss out on dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. I don't want to lose. I want to win. I want his rod and his staff to comfort me. I want to be led and guided through all the journeys of my life. I want to know his voice and recognize when he calls. I want to be spiritually refreshed and revitalized by his cup. I want to win. Well, I've answered my question. I accept that I am a sheep. I know I need a shepherd. I've made my choice. I've said whom I choose to follow, and I know what side I'm on. Have you chosen? Have you chosen to believe? Have you chosen whom you will follow? Have you chosen what side you will be on? I urge you to choose your destiny by saying, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. I implore you to make the commitment with the words, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I invite you to make it personal and proclaim, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. And I challenge you to turn your life over to Christ, declaring, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Because if the Lord is your shepherd, and he is guiding you and leading you, comforting and protecting you, restoring and revitalizing you, I guarantee you'll find yourself saying, the Lord is my shepherd, and that's all I want.